Hi guys, we're back to read another part of our Wonder Book. The first chapter is called Driving. It was a long drive home. I fell asleep in the back seat like I always do, my head on Via's lap like she was my pillow, a towel wrapped around the seatbelt so I wouldn't drool all over her. Via fell asleep too, and Mom and Dad talked quietly about grown-up things I didn't care about. I don't know how long I was sleeping, but when I woke up, there was a full moon outside the car window. It was a purple night, and we were driving on a highway full of cars, and then I heard Mom and Dad talking about me. "We can't keep protecting him," Mom whispered to Dad, who was driving. "We can't just pretend he's going to wake up tomorrow and this isn't going to be his reality. Because it is, Nate, and we have to help him learn to deal with it. We can't just keep avoiding situations." "So sending him off to middle school like a lamb to the slaughter?" Dad answered angrily, but he didn't even finish his sentence because he saw me in the mirror looking up. "What's a lamb to the slaughter?" I asked sleepily. "Go back to sleep, Auggie," Dad said softly. "Everyone will stare at me at school," I said, suddenly crying. "Honey," Mom said. She turned around in the front seat and put her hand on my hand. "You know if you don't want to do this, you don't have to, but we spoke to the principal there and told him about you, and he really wants to meet you." "What did you tell him about me?" "How funny you are, and how kind and smart." "When I told him you read Dragon Rider when you were 6, he was like, 'Wow, I have to meet this kid.'" "Did you tell him anything else?" I said. Mom smiled at me. Her smile kind of hugged me. "I told him about all your surgeries and how brave you are," she said. "So he knows what I look like?" I asked. "Well, we brought pictures from last summer," Dad said. "We showed him pictures of the whole family, and the great shot of you holding the flounder on the boat. You were there, too?" I have to admit, I felt a little disappointed that he was part of this. "We both talked to him, yes," Dad said. "He's a really nice man. You would like him," Mom added. Suddenly it felt like they were on the same side. "Wait, so when did you meet him?" I said. "He took us on a tour of the school last year," said Mom. "Last year?" I said. "So you've been thinking about this for a whole year and you didn't tell me?" "We didn't know if you'd even get in, Auggie," answered Mom. "It's a very hard school to get into. There's a whole admissions process. I didn't see the point in telling you and having you get all worked up about it unnecessarily." "But you're right, Auggie. We should have told you when we found out last month that you got in," said Dad. "In hindsight," sighed Mom. "Yes, I guess." "Did that lady who came to the house that time have something to do with this?" I said. "The one that gave me that test?" "Yes, actually," said Mom, looking guiltily. "Yes." "You told me it was an IQ test," I said. "I know. Well, that was a white lie," she answered. "It was a test you needed to take to get into the school. You did very well on it, by the way." "So you lied," I said. "A white lie. But yes, sorry," she said, trying to smile, but when I didn't smile back, she turned around in her seat and faced forward. "What's a lamb to the slaughter?" I said. Mom sighed and gave Daddy a look. "I shouldn't have said that," Dad said, looking at me in the rearview mirror. "It's not true. Here's the thing. Mommy and I love you so much we want to protect you in any way we can. It's just sometimes we want to do it in different ways." "I don't want to go to school," I answered, folding my arms. "It would be good for you, Auggie," said Mom. "Maybe I'll go next year," I answered, looking out the window. "This year would be better, Auggie," said Mom. "You know why? Because you'll be going into 5th grade, and that's the first year of middle school for everyone. You won't be the only new kid." "I'll be the only kid who looks like me," I said. "I'm not going to say it won't be a big challenge for you, because you know better than that," she answered. "But it'll be good for you, Auggie. You'll make lots of friends, and you'll learn things you'd never learn with me." She turned in her seat again and looked at me. "When we took the tour, you know what they said in their science lab? A little baby chick that was just hatching out of its egg. It was so cute. Auggie, it actually kind of reminded me of you when you were a little baby, with those big brown eyes of yours. I usually love when they talk about me when I was a baby. Sometimes I want to curl up into a tiny ball and let them hug me and kiss me all over. I miss being a baby, not knowing stuff, but I wasn't in the mood for that now. I don't want to go," I said. "How about this? Can you at least meet Mr. Tushman before making up your mind?" Mom asked. "Mr. Tushman?" I said. "He's the principal," answered Mom. "Mr. Tushman?" I repeated. "I know, right?" Dad answered, smiling and looking at me in the rearview mirror. "Can you believe that name, Auggie? I mean, who on earth would ever agree to have a name like Mr. Tushman?" I smiled, even though I didn't want to let them see me smile. Dad was the one person in the world who could make me laugh no matter how much I didn't want to laugh. Dad always made everyone laugh. Auggie, you should go to that school just so you can hear his name said over the loudspeaker, Dad said excitedly. Can you imagine how funny that would be? Hello, hello, paging Mr. Tushman. He was using a fake high old lady voice. Hi, Mr. Tushman. I see you're running a little behind today. Did your car get rear-ended again? What a bum rap. I started laughing. Not even because I thought he was being that funny, but because I wasn't in the mood to stay mad anymore. It could be worse, though, Dad continued in his normal voice. Mommy and I had a professor in college called Miss Butt. Mom was laughing now, too. Is that for rear? I said. Roberta Butt, Mom answered, raising her hand as if to swear. Bobby Butt. She hated huge cheeks, said Dad. Nate, said Mom. What? She had big cheeks is all I was saying. Mom laughed and shook her head at the same time. Hey, I know, said Dad excitedly. Let's fix up on a blind date. Can you imagine Miss Butt meet Mr. Tushman? Mr. Tushman, here's Mrs. Butt. They could get married and have a bunch of little tushies. Poor Mr. Tushman, answered Mom, shaking her head. Auggie hasn't even met the man yet. Nate, who's Mr. Tushman? Via said groggily. She had just woken up. He's the principal of my new school, I answered. Next chapter, paging Mr. Tushman. I would have been more nervous about meeting Mr. Tushman if I'd known I was going to be meeting some kids from the new school, but I didn't know, so if anything, I was kind of giggly. I couldn't stop thinking about all the jokes Daddy had made about Mr. Tushman's name. So when me and Mom arrived at Beecher Prep a few weeks before the start of the school year, and I saw Mr. Tushman standing there, waiting for us at the entrance, I started giggling right away. He didn't look at all like what I pictured, though. I guess I thought he would have a huge butt, but he didn't. In fact, he was a pretty normal guy, tall and thin, old but not really old. He seemed nice. He shook my mom's hand first. Mr. Tushman, it's so nice to see you again, said Mom. This is my son, August. Mr. Tushman looked right at me and smiled and nodded. He put his hand out for me to shake. Hi, August, he said, totally normal. It's a pleasure to meet you. Hi, I mumbled, dropping my hand into his hand while I looked down at his feet. He was wearing red Adidas. So, he said, kneeling down in front of me so I couldn't look at his sneakers but had to look at his face. Your mom and dad have told me a lot about you. Like, what have they told you? I asked. Sorry? Honey, you have to speak up, said Mom. Like what? I asked, trying not to mumble. I admit I have a bad habit of mumbling. Well, that you like to read, said Mr. Tushman, and that you're a great artist. He had blue eyes with white eyelashes. And you're into science, right? Uh-huh, I nodded. We have a couple of great science electives at Beecher, he said. Maybe you'll take one of them. Uh-huh, I said. I had no idea what an elective was. So are you ready to take a tour? You mean we're doing that now, I said. Did you think we were going to the movies, he answered, smiling as he stood up. You didn't tell me we were taking a tour, I said to Mom in my accusing voice. Auggie, she started to say. It'll be fine, August, said Mr. Tushman, holding his hand out to me. I promise. I think he wanted me to take his hand, but I took Mom's instead. He smiled and started walking towards the entrance. Mommy gave my hand a little squeeze, though I don't know if it was a I love you squeeze or an I'm sorry squeeze. Probably a little of both. The only school I'd ever been inside before was Via's, when I went with Mom and Dad to watch Via sing in spring concerts. The school was very different. It was smaller. It smelled like a hospital. Nice, Mrs. Garcia. We followed Mr. Tushman down a few hallways. There weren't a lot of people around, and the few people who were there didn't seem to notice me at all, though that may have been because they didn't see me. I sort of hid behind Mom as I walked. I know that kind of sounds babyish of me, but I wasn't really feeling brave right then. We ended up in a small room with the words Office of the Middle School Director on the door. Inside, there was a desk with a nice-seeming lady sitting behind it. This is Mrs. Garcia, said Mr. Tushman, and the lady smiled at Mom and took off her glasses and got up out of her chair. My mother shook her hand and said, Isabella Pullman, nice to meet you. And this is August, Mr. Tushman said. Mom kind of stepped to the side a bit so I would move forward. Then that thing happened that I've seen a million times before. When I looked up at her, Mrs. Garcia's eyes dropped for a second. It was so fast, no one else would have noticed, since the rest of her face stayed exactly the same. She was smiling a really shiny smile. Such a pleasure to meet you, August, she said, holding out her hand for me to shake. Hi, I said quietly, giving her my hand, but I didn't want to look at her face, so I kept staring at her glasses, which hung from a chain around her neck. Wow, what a firm grip, said Mrs. Garcia. Her hand was really warm. The kids got a killer handshake, Mr. Tushman agreed, and everyone laughed above my head. You can call me Mrs. G, Mrs. Garcia said. I think she was talking to me, but I was looking at all of the stuff on her desk now. That's what everyone calls me, Mrs. G. I forgot my combination, Mrs. G. I need a late pass, Mrs. G. I want to change my elective. Mrs. G is actually the only one who runs the place, said Mr. Tushman, which again made all the grown-ups laugh. I'm here every morning by 7:30, Mrs. Garcia continued, still looking at me while I stared at her brown sandals with small purple flowers on the buckles. So if you ever need anything, August, I'm the one to ask, and you can ask me anything. Okay, I mumbled. Oh, look at that cute baby, Mom said, pointing to one of the photographs on Mrs. G's bulletin board. Is he yours? No, my goodness, said Mrs. Garcia, smiling a big smile now that was totally different from her shiny smile. You just made my day. He's my grandson. What a cutie, said Mom, shaking her head. How old? In that picture, he was 5 months, I think, but he's big now, almost 8 years old. Wow, said Mom, nodding and smiling. Well, he is absolutely beautiful. Thank you, said Mrs. Garcia, nodding like she was about to say something else about her grandson. But then, all of a sudden, her smile got a little smaller. We're all going to take very good care of August, she said to Mom, and I saw her give Mom's hand a little squeeze. I looked at Mom's face, and that's when I realized she was just as nervous as I was. I guess I liked Mrs. Garcia when she wasn't wearing her shiny smile. Alrighty, guys, we're going to stop there for today. Tune back in tomorrow for our next chapter.